Good evening, welcome to Markets Today. I'm Lata Venkatesh. With me is Surabhi Upadhyay. The Bulls had the upper hand today after briefly losing control yesterday. They came back, but the midcaps never lost control. It's been an ongoing rally for the past several days now, and the midcaps today put on almost 1% in terms of weight. What was good about the rise today was it wasn't supported by the Bank Nifty. That one underperformed and the mantle passed on to other stocks. So all in all, you'll have to say, if you are a bullish trader with long positions, you would be a happy day. It would be a happy day for you. Hi, sir.
Hi, Lata. Yes, lots to go over, including some great numbers that we got after market hours from Cognizant, but all that after the headlines. Bulls make steady progress on Dalal Street. Benchmark indices gain 0.6%. The Nifty ends above 8550. Sensex rises by 150 points. IT, Pharma and real estate stocks gain. Banks finally see profit booking.
Midcaps outshine large caps once again, with the midcap index closing almost 1% higher. Adani Enterprises rallies 5% on talks with Foxconn for a manufacturing joint venture. In a separate development, the company loses the environmental approval for its Australian mine company. Nestle gains 5% after an FSSAI-approved lab finds Maggie safe. Balaji Telefilms surges 20% after Star Group sells its entire stake in the company.
IT major Cognizant reports a strong 6% growth in dollar revenue, beating all its other Indian peers, raises full-year guidance for the second time this year, saying 2015 revenue is expected to grow at least 20.1%.
Tata Group stocks gain after Tata Sons declares it will buy Tata Steel's 2.18% stake in Titan. Tata Metallics, Tata Sponge and Tata Steel are all rallying between 2 and 14%.
A day after the monetary policy announcement, RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan speaks exclusively to Network 18, says consumer inflation must remain below 6% even after a rate cut for the central bank to become more accommodative in its policy stance.
Well, those were some of the headlines that the street worried about, and here are the experts that we have lined up on the show for you. We'll tell you what RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan thinks are the potential risks for the economy. We will also listen in to the DIPP Secretary Amitabh Kant on the recent spurt in foreign direct investment into India. And we'll also talk markets with Pramod Gubbi of Ambit Capital. On Corporate Radar, we listen in to the Dr. Reddy's management on their new branding strategy.
Okay, but first the market action of the day. The Bulls continue to call shots on Dalal Street. The market moved higher today with major indices clocking some healthy gains. Anuj Singhal is now here with the wrap of the day's action. Anuj, what did you make of it?
Yeah, the day belonged to the Bulls. In fact, Bulls have been in control for the last 5 or 6 days. And again, today was a good day. The Nifty made a move towards 8600. Now, you could be nitpicking about the Nifty not breaking 8600, but it's an important resistance mark. The midcaps continued to outperform, though the quality of the rally today was a bit questionable. And that's something that, a lot of traders have to be wary of. And we did see some profit booking in some stocks like tire stocks, for example. But let's talk about the bigger stocks. IT clearly was the sector of the day. And Cognizant's numbers came out post-market hours, and there's a good chance that tomorrow as well, maybe there would be some cheer on IT stocks. But Infosys led the rally there, up 3%. Wipro was up 3% as well, and TCS was up about 1%. Apart from that, you had some prominent Nifty gainers like Z Entertainment, that was up 3%. Lupin was up about 2.5%, and Bajaj Auto was up 2.5% as well. Among other gainers, you had stocks like Ultratech, Tata Steel, and ONGC. These were the 3 gainers that we had. On the losing side, Tata Motors was one of the top losers. The stock was down about 1%. Coal India and SBI were other prominent losers. But then again, it was all about mid-cap. So a lot of stocks actually. You had HCL Infosystems, that was up 20%. SCI Shipping Corp up 11%. Suzlon was up 10%. ITD Cementation, HCC, Punj Lloyd, a lot of these stocks were buzzing. And of course, we had Balaji Telefilms as well, where there was a bit of an end of era with Star selling its stake. So overall, a good day for the market. As of now, Bulls totally in control, but the mid-cap rally, that's something to watch out for now.
All right, Anuj, thanks so much for that. On that note, let's get in some market opinion as well. Pramod Gubbi, Director Institutional Sales at Ambit Capital, believes that once banks cut their base rates, there may be scope for another cut by the Reserve Bank of India.
The capital infusion into some of the PSU banks might just hasten that a bit. That's something that we need to watch out for. Now that the money will come into the banks need to deploy that. There is a need to increase lending where demand isn't much. So one of the obvious things could be further cuts to base rates of banks, which could prompt the RBI to say, yes, the transmission is indeed happening and maybe there's scope for one more cut. I think the more meaningful change could be one is more cyclical, which is how do you deal with the current asset quality issues. If we look at a 3 to 5 year horizon, which is a large part of our client base, then I guess all aspects of the story look interesting. More so consumption and investment, not so much exports. But however, for the shorter term, I think the domestic economy is clearly decelerating because of some of the structural reforms that are taking place, which inevitably have a short-term negative impact, both in terms of rural consumption as well as real estate and construction being a drag on both consumption and investment in general.
Okay, that's one view of the markets. India is moving in the right direction economically, says DIPP Secretary Amitabh Kant. The top boss at this Industrial Policy and Promotion Department claims that there has been a 48% spurt in foreign direct investment coming into the country, and he lists the reasons why things are happening right.
The 49% FDI, FII was already permitted. Yeah. All that we've done is we've said through the composite cap that it's permitted through the automatic route. We've just made things easier for people that don't, you were allowed that, so FIIs can come in.
You may have made things easier, sir, but the government has said that it frowns upon retail FDI in multi-brand retail.
Yeah, but beyond 50, what the government has said is that beyond 49%, what this composite cap has said is that till 49% FDI, FII can come into India in retail. Defense Ministry is extremely well intentioned. They've appointed a committee. That one-man committee is making its recommendation, and I'm quite sure with all the pressure from other ministries as well, we are going to see a very, very liberal and a forward-looking progressive policy in the days to come. To my mind, this should be through in the next 5 to 6 months.
All right, that's the DIPP Secretary. Moving on, the Monetary Policy Committee is work in progress, which could take years to fructify. That's the word coming in from RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan. It's not just that, the rate panel, even the public, it's not just the rate panel, even the Public Debt Management Agency will not be a reality anytime soon, feels the governor.
जब वीटो है तो एक आदमी निर्णय लेता है, वो गवर्नर, और बाकी सारा जो apparatus है वो सिर्फ एडवाइस देने के लिए है, और अल्टीमेटली गवर्नर का रिस्पांसिबिलिटी है, क्योंकि उसको कुछ अच्छा नहीं लगता है तो वो वीटो कर सकता है. शायद और लोगों को भी कुछ आइडिया हो, कुछ नॉलेज हो, तो कमेटी में वो नॉलेज शेयर हो जाता है.
फॉर्मेट बताया जा रहा है कि अगर 7 में से 4 मेंबर सरकार की ओर से नॉमिनेट होते हैं.
लेट मी क्लैरिफाई, द IFC कोड प्रोपोजिशन इज नॉट व्हाट आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट. I'm talking about an agreement with the government which was reached separately and is something that both the government and the RBI feel comfortable with.
All right, that's a saga that will continue, and the RBI governor thinks that the amending of the RBI Act, of course, is not a matter of months. IT major Cognizant reported its second quarter numbers for 2015 today. Revenue at $3.09 billion is 22.5% higher on an annualized basis, and it is the highest ever for Cognizant. But for more on that, let's go across to Kritika, who's standing by with the details. Kritika.
Well, at the highest ever in terms of its sequential growth, it's a growth of around $174 million in terms of Q-on-Q revenue incremental growth that they've seen. But over and above that, they've actually posted numbers way better than all their large Indian IT players. So if I go into the details, their revenue, as you said, is up by 6%. It's higher than their guidance of 3.5%. 5.4%, and our expectation of around 4.3%. PAT to significantly higher as well. We are expecting 8.5 to 9%. They've reported a PAT up by 9.7%. Margins are very interesting this time, largely aided by cross-currency benefits, up by 20.8 at 20.8%, significantly higher than their typical margin band. They try to stick between 19 to 20%, but they've gone below 19% as well in a couple of quarters due to cross-currency headwinds as well. In terms of their guidance going ahead, now that's what stands out. For Q3, they're expecting a growth of around 1.6%, but for the full year, they've revised their guidance and they're expecting revenues to come in at least 20.1%. So full year, calendar year 2015 revenues are expected to come in at least $12.33 billion. Now remember, last quarter, Lata Surabhi, they'd actually increased their guidance from at least 19% to 19.3%, and the street was cheering at the back of that, and now they've hiked this further. So it's a big positive and clear signs that despite the headwinds that we're seeing in the industry, despite the clear shifts that the clients are seeing, Cognizant is doing something right, which not all Indian IT players have started doing yet.
Okay, all right, Kritika, many thanks for that. Well, IT stocks are going to be reacting to those extremely strong numbers. So Cognizant has completely beaten all the other listed players by a wide margin. But let's shift focus. FMCG stocks were also under the radar today. Nestle rallied over 7% after an FSSAI-approved lab said Maggi noodles were in compliance with India's food safety standards. Imami and Marico also moved quite a bit on the back of numbers. Agam Vakil joins in with a wrap-up of all that action. Agam.
So to start off with the earnings, we are looking at Marico with a mixed set of numbers, though it has beaten street expectations when it comes to margins as well as the bottom line. Starting with revenues, which have grown as much as 10% on a year-on-year basis, with EBITDA margins also expanding to around 18.2% as against 16.4%, a bit ahead of street, with net profits growing as much as 28%. Now in terms of variables, we were keeping an eye on volumes, which has come at around 5%, which are on an overall basis. This is on the lower end of estimates, and when it comes to gross margin expansion, very much in line with street at around 110 basis points to around 46.2%, with steady growth seen in the categories of parachutes, Saffola, as well as value-added hair oils. Moving on to Imami, well, a good set of numbers coming in, and here it's beat on all expectations when it comes to the revenues, which has moved up as much as 22%, or EBITDA margins for that matter, which have moved to around 16.9% as against 15.8%, with a beat on profits as well, growing as much as 23% at around 87 crores. And once again, this is where we are looking at gross margin expansion much wider than what the street was anticipating, at around 440 basis points on the back of benign raw material costs, which have boosted the overall margin scenario. Moving on, we are also looking at the higher ad spends, though, which have partially countered the overall margin expansion. But on the whole, it's a very good set of numbers for Imami. And finally, we have some good news for Nestle. This is on the back of the fact, as reports suggest, that the Nestle Maggi noodles have been found safe by government-approved labs, and at least one FSSAI-approved laboratory has found noodles to be in compliance with the country's food safety standards, because of which we've seen good strength in Nestle today. And do remember, on the back of this, finally Nestle has, as a matter of fact, recovered a good 24-25% from the controversy lows, which also signifies an improvement in sentiment for Nestle.
All right, thanks for that update both on Reddy's and Imami, on Nestle and Imami. Dr. Reddy's is the other stock on our radar. It's one pharma company that has been in the pink of health for the past few quarters, but the company is not willing to just sit on past laurels. Speaking to CNBC TV 18's Archana Shukla, the chairman and co-chairman of the company, say the focus now is to change tracks and project itself as a healthcare major.
The quality management system itself, we are revamping it, bringing it in line with the new expectations of the FDA, both in terms of compliance, data protection, reliability, as well as the new set of metrics that they are asking the industry to look at. So that process will take a year or 2 years to deeply entrench itself. It's not just a question of money, it's a question of looking at the hardware, the software, the training, the culture, all of those.
All right, that's Dr. Reddy. It's time for a break now, but coming up, Sudarshan Sukhani will be joining in for a technical chat. We'll also tell you about all the stocks that were buzzing around with news today.